What's up, Earth Rockers? It's your boy Shovatar here, back again to talk about Castlevania Chronicles. And unique, perhaps, among my previous commentary videos, my commentary this time is going to have sort of a related subtopic threaded through my my analysis of the gameplay as it unfolds. Today's subtopic is fake news, misinformation, or perhaps scarcity of information. So even though this game was released in 2001 and is a mainline entry in one of the most well-known video game franchises of all time, apparently nobody knows anything about this game. Or apparently at least nobody knows anything about the higher difficulty of this game. What I knew going into Castlevania Chronicles was this. Other games in the series, Castlevania 1, Castlevania 3, Castlevania 4, have what they call a second loop. In old video game terminology. What that means is you finish the game once and the game restarts on a higher difficulty. Second loop, second quest, whatever you want to call it. What I knew about Castlevania Chronicles original mode was that it had not more than a second loop. It kind of kept going. It keeps going after that for a while, and as in there's a third loop that's harder, there's a fourth loop that's harder, etc., etc. And I wanted to know two things. Number one, I wanted to know how many loops there were. And number two, I wanted to know what the differences were. Because I was out of curiosity. Now, taking those in reverse order, I was not able to find out what the differences were, which now that I've actually gone through all the extra loops, I understand to a greater degree because it's a lot of little things adding up over time. There's not really any one as it would have to be with so many different iterations on the difficulty. But the second question has a very simple numerical answer, just how many loops there are. And this question, for some reason, was difficult to find an answer to. Wikipedia said 6 additional playthroughs, which would add up to 7 loops. Somebody on Reddit said there were 5, and I found a YouTube video of a guy doing an 8th loop. And so he said, well, if he's doing loop 8, why then that would imply that there's something different about loop 8 compared to loop 7, so otherwise why wouldn't you just do loop 7? So I had no fucking idea. I just had to find out for myself because there were conflicting answers. And let me just say for everybody listening, there are 6. It goes up to the 6th loop. So 5 additional loops after the first one, and then it stops changing in any way that I encountered. This video says 6th loop, but in reality, I think this is like a 7th or 8th loop. But I label it 6th because it doesn't matter. However, I had read a comment on a YouTube video by some fucking guy who claimed that the game did continue to change after the 6th loop because in this way, enemies starting with the second loop, according to this guy, have a random chance to one-shot you, and the chance to randomly one-shot you goes up with every subsequent loop. That is a complete lie. Either it's a complete lie or I'm the luckiest player who's ever lived, because that has happened to me 0 times in all of my playthroughs of these higher loops. And I think, and what's so bizarre about that claim is that I have not found it anywhere else. It's like something this one guy made up. And I'm just going to quickly diverge and talk about the gameplay for a second. So my least favorite thing about Chronicles original mode is level 2, because it's a bunch of bats, and literally nothing but bats, into a boss that more or less requires a stun lock stopwatch cheese to be killed, and the availability of items and of meat on this level is contingent upon not just getting to them, but a precise attack delivered on a precise timing. And the more loops you do for this stage, the more bats they add. It's just a bat bonanza here on level 2. So if you're curious what the differences are for level 2, that's what it is. There's a bunch more bats, and then there's a few more bone serpents. There's one more bone serpent up ahead, but I'm going to completely avoid it. And this is interesting because I'm now going to have to do the rest of the entire stage on this one last point of health. Because I can't get to the meat in this stage without trying to go through 3 bone dragons and a bunch of bats, which is not fucking happening. So, it's just going to have to happen here. Yeah, that rumor about random one-shotting, I never found it anywhere else. It's like something this guy made up, or he like heard it on the playground or something from some random kid, and then he just reposted it. So, for everyone to hear, the general differences in the harder loops are, starting with the second loop, as you'd expect, everything does 4 damage. And something that makes original modes so difficult, I've talked before about the difficulty in Castlevania games coming in large or small, coming in large part from the platforming and from the threat of instant death. But something that I did not appreciate until it returned in this game is how important it is to the difficulty when the game says you take 4 hits and you die. A lot of other games that I played later on, even after 1 and 3, even really difficult ones like Dracula X, still gave you a lot of leeway in terms of how many times you could get hit. With like variable damage, or like Bloodlines, you had more health, and there was variable damage. But Castlevania Chronicles has the phrase "you take 4 hits and you die" tattooed on its face like a Zoomer mumble rapper. That is at the core, at the heart and soul of this game. After the second loop is you take 4 hits, you die. Everything does 4 damage. So that contributes to the difficulty in a way that is really, 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 really important. So because there are 5 additional loops of the game to go through, there are a lot of changes in the final product, that being the 6th loop. But there's no really one loop where something happens or something is changed that, okay, so I paused here because I had to go do something, and I just had to stop and reload later. That's what that's all about. I hope you guys trust me enough at this point to believe that this is all one continuous run. Or this is all, well, it's not continuous because I took a break, but this is all the same run. I didn't like reload a save state or splice it together. Actually, I have soft proof that I didn't do that, as you're going to see at the end of this level. And in any case, this is a 1cc. And getting a 1cc in Castlevania Chronicles original mode, difficult as original mode is, that's pretty funny. I wanted the stopwatch, and I got a randomly dropped dagger, and I was mad, and then I got a randomly dropped stopwatch and got it right back. So for the Igor Gauntlet here, the big change, and I don't remember which loop this starts in, is that the Igors get dropped towards you in such a way that they're slightly angled towards you as they're dropped. Which means that it's not just about whipping them, it means that you have to stop moving when they see them come onto the screen. Because if you keep walking forward, then you're going to walk into them. So you have to stop and then wait for them to get dropped and then whip them. So it just sort of makes you take longer with the gauntlet. The fountain, there's more bubbles coming out of the fountain than there is in the first loop. What was I saying? Yeah, so as difficult as original mode is, even on 6th loop, 1cc'ing it is not that bad because there are some 1-ups and you get lives from points. So this is actually the second 1cc I've recorded for this difficulty. I recorded a 1cc prior to this where I think I died like 9 times. I died like 8 or 9 times, and I still got the 1cc. So that's how relatively easy it is. And I was like, I can't fucking upload like a 9 death 1cc to YouTube. I gotta bring that shit down a little bit. So that's what I did. I think the final count is like 5 deaths in this video, which is still not great. I mean, optimally, I would want like 3 or fewer, but at least one of the deaths was not really my fault. And that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Know what I mean? Um, it's rare for me to upload a video that I'm 100% satisfied with, but so that's what this one represents, one of the suboptimal ones, but oh well. It's so funny that it's like it's funny like when the developers of these games are horny. It's like, let's give the mud people, let's make the mud people into women and give them boobs. That's such a strange decision to me. Yeah, the more loops you do, the more birds spawn up on that wall over there, but it's irrelevant because you can just walk right past them by going down the stairs. Most of level 3 is actually unchanged. Or most of this stage of level 3 is actually unchanged. Excuse me, in the higher loops. The bats are faster, which is relevant, but that's pretty much it. Excuse me, sorry. The bats are faster, and taking 4 hits before you die makes the magician boss a lot harder. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't like add more stuff to this level. This level is also not great. I talk about level 2 as being the big problem with this game, and I think it is, but the fact that this level, like I really don't like slipping and sliding around on ice as a mechanic. That's kind of like a It seems like it's like a video game idea where it's like, okay, this is true to life, but it's not fun, and it never will be. You know what I mean? Yeah, here I don't really play this super well. I mean, in my defense, these feathers are fucking hard to dodge because of the way that they are. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I didn't really. I don't really know what I don't really feel like I did anything wrong there. I guess maybe I could have tried to get more distance. Well, no, but you can't get distance on the guy because you have to fucking hit him. I don't know. I wonder if there's an axe in this level. I actually don't know if there is one, if there is or is not one. Because I mean, obviously an axe would make that fight way fucking easier. But if there is one, I don't know where it is. I know the only axe that I know for sure exists in this game is there's an axe in level. There's an axe in level 1 before the bat boss, but I need the stopwatch to get through level 2, so I can't bring that one all the way here. Yeah, I don't know. I do not know. Fun fact: the frozen vampire in the background there is supposed to be Count Orlok from Nosferatu. Nosferatu, an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula that nonetheless features a vampire who is not Dracula, who is instead named Count Orlok for legal reasons. I think Bram Stoker was dead by then, but I think like his widow had the rights or something, and she was like, I don't want to, I don't want to have to like, I don't know. When did that movie come out? 1920 something? I've actually seen that movie. I've actually seen Nosferatu. It's probably the oldest movie I've ever seen. Yeah, this fucking boss, man. I actually hate this boss. Because of moments. You have so many moments like that where he's just like, you can't like get to him. I mean, I guess utilizing the little pedestals on the floor makes that better, but like there are some times where he'll fly up into positions that you can't get to even from there, and it seems random which ones he does. I mean, if I was playing a different version where you could throw sub-weapons higher up, then that would be better, but I'm not. I'm playing the regular US version. Yeah, this was pretty hard, but it was not hard to... This is kind of like the 1cc conundrum when it comes to games like this, and even Dracula's Curse to a certain extent, where it's like, if I just go for a 1cc, then I could play like garbage and I'd still get it. So, and I don't want to do Deathless because that would be fucking way too hard. So what's the compromise? You know? And the compromise basically is get a 1cc that's not like terrible. So that's what I set out to do here. Yeah, that turret up there on the left is a new addition. I think that shows up in like the third or fourth loop. I think that having 6 loops was sort of like, I don't know. I mentioned in my first video that this game was released for a gaming computer, like a computer specifically made for gaming hobbyists, and that sub-weapon I just picked up is what they call the green herb, which consumes, I believe, 10 hearts to heal 6 points of life. And the green herb is a random drop. It's not consistently available from any torch anywhere. It is only dropped randomly from enemies, which is a terrible idea. I hate the concept of the green herb. I don't like randomness in games like this. I like to think because games like this to me are fun when you can plan out what you're gonna do, and what you're gonna do is what you do every time. And yeah, that's why I don't hold on to the green herb, even though it might technically be the correct play to do so, because I sort of just have a philosophical objection to its existence. Like, if I get a good run of this game, I don't want it to be because I happen to get lucky enough to get a green herb to drop at an opportune time. I want it to be because I played well. Because my decisions were impactful and were correct, and because my appraisal and my tactics paid off. I'm kind of mystified by its inclusion in this game. I don't know if oh yeah, I should point out back there the statue spawns way more blood skeletons. But that only starts happening in the later loops. I think it's like only loop 5 or 6 when it spawns like a million fucking skeletons. Which actually makes that part almost impossible to get through without taking at least one hit. Yeah, that ghost is new. Fortunately, they don't fucking send Medusa heads at you while you have to do the spikes thing like they do in Castlevania 1 Second Quest, which is honestly what I was expecting, but apparently not. That ghost is there on the first loop, and then over here, I think there's one eyeball over here on normal, and then for every new loop, every new loop, they add another eye, which is why there's 6 there. Yeah, and now here for this, every pole has 2 spikes instead of just the last one. This is tricky. This took me a while to figure out. I would like jump forward and take damage, and I didn't understand why it was happening. You have to like... You can't jump too early, which I think is what I did there. I think what you have to do... You really have to wait until the bottom spike is like completely off the screen. And am I... Yep, I'm at 1 health. This is what I'm talking about. The 4 hits you're dead rule, it just is so relevant. And here is this guy. I don't know if I explained this in my last video or not. What happened there is if you stay on the left side of that lower platform, then so that stained glass guy is programmed to constantly back away from you and then throw projectiles at you. So if you're facing him and he comes in to the right of you up there on that platform, he will just walk off the platform immediately and then try to just try to walk into a wall the whole time. And here's one of my classic patented mid-run bathroom breaks. This is just the reality uh, of doing multiple like run attempts all in a row. Is sometimes you just have to get up and leave. And I didn't pause I didn't like interrupt the footage again like and like fuck with it because I figured, okay, if I have two like jumps like that in one video, then people actually are gonna think that I'm like splicing. So you're just gonna have to sit here and wait with me. I do like how this level looks. Actually, it's probably one of my favorite levels visually in Chronicles. Maybe my absolute favorite visually. Yeah, and by the time we got to 2001, I guess localizers were okay with crosses being in video games in America. Medusa goes down. Yeah, I don't know how you'd fight that boss without some kind of stun lock, because she just fucking walks at you. I think I mentioned in previous videos that that's my least favorite thing in Castlevania games is enemies that just fucking walk at you. You can't do anything about it. Dracula's castle. Now we go into the clock tower, and the clock tower is actually almost the same no matter how many loops you go through. Specifically, this stage of the clock tower, this first stage of the clock tower, is completely identical to first loop, which I guess which is fine, because this stage is honestly like hard enough. Like there's enough spots like that already where you get put in these no-win situations where you have to gain ground and you have to ascend and you have to like work with those rotating not rotating. Yeah, rotating. The platform, the ones that I'm on right now, the platforms that either the tilting platforms while you're trying to take shots at the skeleton guys while Medusa heads are coming at you. So yeah, that was not smart. I probably should have getting through the stage without taking at least one damage is almost impossible, but getting through without taking two is pretty easy. So that was pretty stupid of me to just walk into that guy. I think I was nervous because I didn't like the idea of being on the staircase for too long. Like I thought a Medusa head was going to run into me. Yeah, the extra turrets that drop down there, that's a higher loop addition. And I think, yeah, Medusa head spawning while you jump across the gears. That's also new. Surprisingly not relevant. You'd think the game throwing Medusa heads at you while you're trying to do a specifically oh yeah, those two platforms falling down, that's a higher loop change. Alright, do I do the massive balls jump or do I have to crouch under it? This looks like crouching, yeah. Yeah, that's fine. That's probably smart. I mean, that's the smarter way to do it. In my Deathless Normal video, I like jumped over that, which is pretty risky and insane, but there I did the smarter thing. So here's the first one-up that I'm gonna collect. This game loves doing shit like that. There's so many places in this game where if you stop and you crouch somewhere, something will come out of the ground. Either like something gives you a bunch of points or a one-up, which points only exist to give you one-ups, so that's that. Yeah, more hunchbacks there, that's also a higher loop addition. And now the big change in the clock tower is that the more loops you do, the more of these gears fall off the wall and come at you. So what was already a sort of, I think, ill-conceived beginner's trap mechanic becomes even worse the higher loops you get up, as you get into higher and higher loops, because there's even fucking more of them. Fortunately, they didn't add any more eyeballs, which is what I was afraid would happen, because dealing with those things is really sort of the centerpiece of this stage. It's the thing that's the hardest, is killing those eyeballs without taking any damage. Because you have to do it on this awful, restrictive terrain. Unfortunately, there's only one more to go after that. Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, I thought I would have more. I thought that, could you guys hear that? I wonder if that got picked up. There's another fucking asshole with a loud car outside. I thought that this footage would have more opportunities for me to do, like, play-by-play strategy explanations, but it kind of doesn't. It's sort of like all very, it's very like surface level. With the exception of me saying, okay, jump forward to bait these gears. I feel like nothing else really needs to be explained. It's not like Dracula's curse, man. But I guess nothing ever will be. Okay, now I think the werewolf boss fight is probably going to be more interesting here than it was in the last video. She probably does not jump around and do nothing again. That's my guess. Yep, she's already doing more. Okay. Wow. I don't know what causes her to like pause in between. Yeah, this is why the cross and the triple shot is so important. I don't know if you're noticing, like how many projectiles are just getting bouncing off of the cross. This is actually another part. It's sort of so just like how I need the stopwatch to fight the zombie dragon in level 2. That means that I can't really die between level 1 and level 2 getting the stopwatch, or else I lose it. Kind of the same case with the clock tower, where I really can't die in the clock tower, because I can't fight this boss without a cross and a triple shot. And the cross is only available, really, in like earlier in the game, in like level 4. There is technically a cross in a torch in the clock tower, but in order to get to it, you have to execute this really tricky jump off of one of those tilting platforms. And I don't know, maybe I'm just not good enough, but in the time that it takes me to get that... Okay, is there no gargoyle? No gargoyle? Okay. See, okay. That time they stopped spawning, but last time they didn't stop spawning. If you watch my last video. So I still don't understand that. Yeah, there's technically a cross in level 5 in that stage, in that last stage of the clock tower, but in order to get to it, you have to execute a really difficult jump that would take me like so much time that by the time I finished, I would be like the levels timer would have run out. I do like the music that plays this level. I think this level overall is kind of weak conceptually, but it does have a pretty cool soundtrack. I can't believe I get out of this. It's this section really makes you feel like you're about to die by having these chunks like fall in slow motion, which doesn't really make sense, but it's Dracula's castle, man. It doesn't have to make sense. My right leg is numb. I hope I'm not having a heart attack. This part is actually more or less the same. I think those two little clowns up there are new. And I think there's maybe one. Yeah, there's one of those two bats is new. And there's like 1 or 2 dolls here that they're new. Oh, sorry. I guess this footage must not be that exciting if I'm fucking yawning watching it. Um, the thing about this game and the higher loops is that yes, the higher loops make the game harder, but most of what I've described in terms of the things that the higher loops add is like an extra enemy here or there, and like a few mechanical changes. Um, I guess a few like some of the jumps in the clock tower or like the having to deal with those platforms falling down is difficult, but I don't know. Because the changes are so spaced out, it's difficult to and the difficulty is increased so gradually with each loop. I can't really point to anything in particular about the higher difficulties of this game that substantially make it harder. Um, like I can't even remember which of these enemies are present in the first loop and which ones aren't. And I just fucking watched the footage of the first loop. But because it doesn't like stick in my memory as particularly different, I just don't remember. So what's weird is even though this game is like really hard, this is the hardest game I've played since 3, probably. You'd think that the 6th loop would be like this brutal gauntlet of difficulty where you're just like getting fucked left and right, but really it's not like that. I can't think of anything that's super important. In Dracula's Curse, it's very clear. It's what makes it's the RNG skulls, horse shit that they are, do really make Dracula's Curse hard mode into a different kind of game. And then the ghosts they add on like level 4, things like that, like they really make whole stages and whole rooms feel different. But in this game, I don't know. It's mostly just like it takes a little bit more time to clear things. Oh, this is funny coming up here in a moment. Those 3 mirrors. So that's a funny little drawing of the doppelganger Simon coming up here, and that only shows up in the 6th loop. Game FAQs incorrectly says that it only appears in the 8th loop. That's a lie. It starts appearing in the 6th loop. And then it remains there for every subsequent loop. And the drawing doesn't even really look that much like the doppelganger, because the doppelganger just kind of looks like the Green Goblin. So I guess it's just a silly joke. I guess it doesn't have to make perfect sense. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, maybe there is one thing about the higher loops that makes the game a lot harder. Rather, one type of thing, which is that most of the changes are backloaded. Like the earlier levels are really different. Like the zombies having their charge in level 1, all the extra bats in level 2. The Igor Gauntlet being different in level 3. Oh, and the caterpillars. I didn't even get a chance to talk about the caterpillars because I just like forgot to. The caterpillars in level 3, what they do normally is they'll frequently rear up and try to shoot you, like expose their underbellies, and then if you hit them while they do that, they get one shot. But on the higher loops, they will attack you without standing up. And you have to like whip them down, and it takes longer to kill them, and that's actually pretty relevant. But I was too busy talking about something else to actually point it out. And here, yeah, they added the 2nd bone thrower, and they added a lot more of these guys, the skeletons that explode. And they respawn if you walk too far and try to go back. So they really punish you for moving in this hallway here. And for not moving, rather. Yeah, what I'm doing here is not really an efficient use of the whip. What I should be trying to do is whipping 2 of these things at the same time when they pop up, but I'm not. I'm playing it super duper safe and killing them one at a time. Just as soon as I see them. Yeah, the Igors down there are new. It's just like Castlevania 1. Where you start off in the room with the bone throwers above you, and then the 2 hunchbacks coming at you. It's interesting in what ways they chose to stick with 1, and in which ways they chose to diverge from it. One thing that people have noted about Castlevania 4 is that Castlevania 4 has the same... I mean, it's the same character as 1, it's Simon Belmont again, but the layout of pretty much everything in Castlevania 4 is completely different from the way it is in Castlevania 1. To the point that it's difficult to even draw direct parallels between levels in 1 and then levels in 4. With Chronicles, it's much easier. They basically split level 4 up into 2 levels, into a cave level and then an above ground level, and then turned those into levels 2 and 3. And then Chronicles 4 is very obviously level 2 from Castlevania 1. Then they stuck in a clock tower, and this level here is very clearly level 5. Except they added more annoying swinging blade traps that make you sit and fucking wait. I guess they didn't replicate level 3, which is an interesting decision. I mean, an understandable decision, perhaps, because level 3 of Castlevania does have a notoriously frustrating design, because that's when the game first gets really aggressive with the whole knocking you into pits thing that people always talk about with Castlevania. But not only is level 3 absent, but the mummy boss is also absent from Chronicles. Frankenstein as a boss technically is absent, but of course Frankenstein, the character, is right here. Completely different from his Castlevania 1 incarnation. Yeah, level 5 was turned into a torture chamber / research center. And I guess level 3 was turned into the bridge and then the Tower of the Dolls, which is interesting. Interesting and mystifying. Dracula has dinosaur skeletons. It would be cool if you saw a skeleton of something that like you fought later. Like some boss or something. It's like a fucked up experiment, and then you see like hints of its development here. I think that'd be cool. Because as it is, it's just like Dracula's doing all this shit, but apparently Dracula's researching all this shit, but all we ever see done as a result is just more skeletons. None of the enemies in Chronicles seem like they would be particularly... None of them seem like they're particularly ingeniously designed. I assume it's Dracula coming down here and fucking with all this stuff, unless it's Death doing it, but that doesn't make much sense to me. Although Death as a character is kind of bizarre in the first place. I was gonna say, it's hard for me to imagine the personification of Death fucking around with library books, but it's also hard to imagine the personification of Death working for Dracula and hanging out in the castle all day. Excuse me, which is apparently what the Grim Reaper does in these games. Yeah, that was bad. The reason that I jumped there is because I was just trying to get closer to the Axe Knight, but I really should have jumped. I should not have jumped when I did. I should have waited for the Medusa head to spawn, and then killed it, then jumped forward immediately. So that way by the time the next one is queued up to spawn, I'm back on the ground floor. And that's a mistake that can cost you, because this is a non-stun lockable Grim Reaper, which means you have to actually fight him. Which means you're probably going to take some damage. That's pretty fucked up, the people stuck in the painting. That's very, some disturbing imagery. I guess I should talk about the Grim Reaper fight a little bit. What you really want to do is you want to get as much early damage on him as possible, which means see, that's so frustrating. I was really I almost had him there. If I had done better early damage, I would have gotten it. Because what you need to do there is you want to just have crosses constantly cycling towards him at the very start, which basically means catching the crosses as they come back instead of letting them stay on the screen for too long, because then you get capped to 3 crosses available on the screen and you can't throw anymore. So you want to like kind of throw 2 and then catch it and then like throw 2 more, so that way by the time one of them is off the screen, you're ready to throw more crosses to replace it. So that's what you're supposed to do there, and that's why it's really important to get into the right rhythm of jumping. And throwing the sub-weapon. Also, yeah, don't stand so close to the right edge of the screen there, because if you are, because Medusa heads are only really easily interceptable if they're coming at you and you're in the center of the screen, or like or like you're moving to the left of the center. If you're tucked all the way in the right corner, they're gonna just hit you from an angle you can't react to. Or you can't easily react to, I guess. And I'm using the cross to kill them because I'm trying to farm them for shot multipliers. Because, like I mentioned, getting early damage on the Grim Reaper is super important, and that's a lot easier to do if you have triple shot multiplier. And there, that fucking Medusa head randomly drops a stopwatch, and because I wasn't prepared for that, I walk forward into it and I pick it up, and now I have the stopwatch for the Grim Reaper fight. And no, the Grim Reaper is not stopwatch cheesable. I know because I tried. All that happens is that he stops moving for exactly 1 frame. And the stopwatch does literally nothing for the rest of the whole fight. Man, this fight is actually, like, crazy, because if you look at how many, look at how many sights were on the screen there. I think that was like 6 or something. In Castlevania 1, and the Grim Reaper is already like a ridiculously hard boss in Castlevania 1. He's like the hardest boss in the whole game. But in Castlevania 1, he summons 4 sights. In this game, he just like fucking doesn't give a shit. He just summons like as many as he feels like. Kind of crazy, and that's honestly why people say this about the Grim Reaper on 1. Also, they say that the Holy Water Stun Lock is good, but also the real trick to beating the Grim Reaper in 1 is the cross of the triple shot. That's true. That's also really good because the cross will destroy projectiles without you having to really worry about it. If you're just constantly spamming the cross and it keeps going back and forth across the screen, like you're gonna hit something. You're gonna hit some of the scythes. So because because you can't stun lock this version of of the Grim Reaper, it makes this preceding hallway super important, and it's almost like this is phase 1 of the boss, because if you take damage here before you get into the Grim Reaper, like it's pretty tough to beat the Grim Reaper without taking at least 1 or 2 damage. I would say taking 2 is what you would expect. So You really can't fuck up here in the hallway. And in fact, the fact that I died on my first attempt, um, I died when he was at 1 HP, and I started off the fight with 3 HP. So actually, if I hadn't fucked up the gauntlet, I probably would have gotten it. I mean, I also fucked up my early damage, and I fucked up a lot of my movement. But what really caused me to die in the first attempt was the fact that I made a mistake on the gauntlet. And what you'll notice there is that he didn't summon any scythes. I can't explain that. I don't know why he didn't. But no scythes were summoned in that entire fight, which made it significantly easier. It made it so that I only took 1 damage instead of the 2 that I would roughly expect. So I don't know. I don't know what the hell happened. I wish I knew how to consistently replicate that, because that fight would be a lot easier if there were no scythes in it. Now we get into level 8. Level 8 is where some of the most relevant difficulty changes actually manifest. Right off the bat, in this area with all the knights, there's going to be an ambush guy. There he is, yep. Oh, what hit me? I think somehow that guy hit me. I don't know how, but somehow, even though I was facing him and I feel like I killed him as soon as I possibly could have, the ambush guy somehow still hit me. Huh. Excuse me, sorry. I was so surprised that I... Fuck, I'm fucking dying. Oh god, that guy hits me too? Jesus Christ. I'm going to shit over here, man. Well, okay, so I have to, what am I doing? What are you doing, Shovatar? Okay, so there's a meat in this first stage of level 8 that I usually don't have to get. But because that fucking asshole somehow hit me while he died, now I've taken damage, now I have to go try to go get the meat wherever it is. But I don't remember where it is. I thought it was down... No, it's... Okay, I remember now. So... Normally, so there's 2 staircases after that first room. There's one that goes up to the right, one that goes up to the left. Usually I take the one on the left to go over into that other room that you can see there what the dude with the shield is, because there's a meat in the wall over there, and because that room is just easier. But I went over here to the right because there's a one up here. If you pray to Jesus Christ in the right place, the one up will appear. Yeah, there it is. And now I have an important decision to make, which is this. Do I go back to the left to try to get the meat, or do I go straight to the last stage of the level? And I get hit because I'm not used to fighting this guy at all. And again, I have to decide, am I going to go for the meat, or am I just going to say fuck it and go into the fire hallway just as I am? And I decide to just say fuck it and go for it, which, in retrospect, actually may not have been the best idea. The reason I did it is because I wasn't sure how I would clear out the first part of the stage without the cross and the triple shot multiply, and of course if I died there I would lose the cross. That was really my main concern. So I figured I would just keep going, see if I could get out of the stage with the cross and not have to worry about that. Even if it meant doing all this shit with the knights without taking any more damage, because the higher loops add more knights, and these things are like really tricky to fight. It might not look that hard, it looks like you just kind of whip them and they die, but that's a very specific technique that I had to learn, where it's like you have to whip them and then wait for like just long enough for them to lower their guard and then whip them again. If you just try to spam them with whips, they'll always block you. And now here's another big difference in the difficulty is that they buffed the bats. in this stage. And yeah, they buffed them by making them move more often. Where the old bats would like lunge at you and then kind of stop for a second and then lunge at you. But with these new bats, it was like they lunge all the time now. Which means you have to, it's not just a matter of baiting them over once and then whipping them until they die. You have to bait them like several times and like keep jumping over them. So now I have to get through all this shit with a short whip, which is a very big problem. Because the longer with your whip is, the better you are at keeping them away from you and like stunning them with the damage. But here I have to start damaging them when they're much closer to me, and just sort of play it by ear from there. Okay, I make the jump, make the fucking obnoxious jump, and here I stopwatch to get past this guy, but I don't want to do that here because I only have 7 hearts, and I need the stopwatch for the last rooms before Dracula. That guy hits me twice, and now I'm in extremely dire straits again because I don't know how to get through this next room without the stopwatch. So if I die in this room, I'm going to come back with no stopwatch, which is not what I want. So I really want to get through this room at least without taking any damage. And the reason the stopwatch is so important here is because the cats are fast, the maids are fast, and up in the second floor, the maids are insane, and they shoot a projectile that's really, really difficult to avoid. So the stopwatch is extremely important here. And even though I do have 9 lives at the moment, I really don't want to die any more than I absolutely have to. If this is gonna be a 1cc that I at all consider to be quality, and this is what I mean when I talk about the enormous margin for error that this game allows you for when it comes to 1cc, regardless of its oppressive difficulty. And I jump off the edge here because if you get to the Dracula fight with 1 HP, you will not survive Phase 2. Phase 2 of Dracula is gonna hit you. The only question is how many times it's gonna hit you. What is that? There's like dead pixels on the right side of the screen or something. What is that? Do you see that? There's like, when the screen was totally dark there's like a little thin line. Is that on my fucking computer screen, or is that... No, that's really there. Okay. That's really weird. Huh. Anyway, yeah, if you get to the Dracula fight with less than... I think I talked about this in my last review. If you get there with 2 health, you're probably gonna die. With 3 health, you're probably fine. With 4 health, you're safe. And then with 1 health, you would need to play like an absolute god to beat Dracula. But I was able to use my final death to simply resolve the situation by dying and coming back at full. Yeah, 8, and I still have 8 lives left, so I have 8 attempts on Dracula, which is what I mean when I say that this game is generous with lives. I mean, if any game has a right to be generous, it's this one, considering how fucking hard it is, but it still feels kind of like... I feel like I used the help me code in Dracula's Curse. And now here's the Joker. Throws the glass on the floor, because he doesn't give a fuck. It starts. Fortunately, no different in any of the higher loops. The higher loops don't change any of the boss fights, which is par for the course with higher difficulties, and I think it's fine. There's no like heroic versions of the boss. Dracula's throne is fucking weird. It's got weird like spikes coming out of it, like horns coming out of it on the left and right back there. Sterling insight. Sorry, this is another like a low energy commentary. I don't really know what my deal is. I'm tired. I'm like, I feel like there's nothing in any of this footage to talk about. Because a lot of it's just like Just, do exactly what I'm doing. So the game's hard, but it's not very interesting. See, Dracula's Curse was always so interesting to talk about. Because there's always, like, reasons for doing certain things. Where this game is just like, yeah, use a stopwatch, then use the cross for, like, the whole game, and then use the holy water for Dracula. I think I was, like, going for a stun lock here or something. And that actually was pretty cool. I jumped over his fireballs there. That was absolutely not intentional. I did not know that was going to happen. That's what happened anyway. And that was pretty good. I took 1 damage on phase 2. So, it proved me correct. Proved that jumping off the edge of the cliff at the end there was the correct decision. If I had gone through that whole thing without taking damage, I actually probably would have been pretty mad about that, but I did not, so I'm not. Simon watches the castle collapse. There's a little protrusion there at the bottom of the stone bridge. It looks like a hand, but I think it's supposed to be tree roots. Now, does this peninsula always exist, or this like cliff always exist? Or when the castle appears, does it appear and bring the cliff with it? These are the questions that need to be answered about Castlevania. So there's Castlevania Chronicles. I apologize I didn't have as much to say about the higher difficulties as I thought I would. I thought I'd have more like strategy to discuss, but there's really nothing to say except there's more enemies and you take more damage earlier on, and the bats are assholes in different ways. I guess the bats are really the most important difference. But next we'll be talking about a range mode. That's gonna be the next video coming up soon. Thank you for playing. Thank you for watching. Furred Boots, Clear Lake. Copyright 1986, Konami. I should have talked more about the bats, actually, now that I think about it. Oh well, hindsight's 20/20. You live and you learn. You make some mistakes, and then